Hey guys, one of the questions we get from a lot of new users, even some people that are a little bit more familiar with GA4, is how to really dive into campaign reporting. So those marketing campaigns that you have set up, where do you get the information about specific campaigns, the creative that they may have, or other aspects that you or your agency may have set up? So we're going to take a dive into GA4 today and look at how you can report on those campaigns, as well as how you can correctly set them up to make sure that you're getting the kind of detailed information you need about your marketing efforts. So let's look at GA4. Okay, so in GA4, we're in the generic Google account. So if you go to acquisition and traffic acquisition, all right, in traffic acquisition, you can see by default that Google includes these default channel groupings. And so it uses a number of criteria to calculate how things should be organized under these channels. So it looks at the site it's coming from, it looks at what's being passed with the URL, and it looks for UTM codes, which we'll touch on a little bit more here in a minute. So these are automatically derived in Google. Again, it's looking at this information and it's assigning these groups to your marketing efforts. So obviously these are relatively self-explanatory, like direct to somebody, typing in your URL, they're coming to your site directly, or they're using a bookmark. Organic search is exactly what it sounds like. Paid search. Unassigned is what happens when Google isn't able to easily determine where they're coming from. And that may be because, one, the information is not getting passed correctly through the URL. Maybe your code isn't triggering correctly on the site more quickly enough, so it's not understanding where people are coming from, or it has an atypical UTM parameter that it doesn't understand how to assign. And we'll touch on that again in a minute. So as you can see, these are useful, and it definitely shows you like which channels are getting attributed to the various marketing efforts. And so it has, all of the relevant data as far as revenue, if you're collecting revenue, if you're reporting on revenue, if you're a retail site, or sessions, and that type of thing. Similar information is under the user acquisition. It's going to focus on users, understandably, rather than sessions. But a lot of people get confused because they're like, where do I get my campaign information? And that's because Google doesn't make it really clear that there's a drop down here. And so if you actually use the drop down, you can see that there's other options here for you. So you have the session primary channel group, the default channel group. You have source medium, which is extremely useful. And this will tell you that this is the main source, and then the medium that it came from. And the medium is defined by the URL. It's also defined by what Google thinks it should be. So for instance, if you're coming from Google's organic, it's going to show you organic. If you're coming from a paid link, it's going to show you Google, which is the source, and then cost per click. That's what that CPC is. So that's cost per click. And so that is a paid program. And then you can see other options down here. And let's expand this a little bit. So you can see they have like a newsletter that is the source's newsletter, and the medium is email. And so they're setting those mediums so that it's relatively consistent, and you can see referrals and that type of stuff. So this is where it breaks down those default channels. So as we saw in the default channel, you may have a bucket of referral, but you don't know exactly what is sending the referral. And this will tell you. This will tell you the website that's sending it, and then it falls into the referral bucket. Okay. Now a website could send you traffic and have a tracking code on it as well. So it could be, for instance, a paid link that you have on a site. And so you need to differentiate between how it came to your site, whether it was just a referral from that site or whether it was a paid link or something like that. And you can see, like in here, you can have Facebook that's referral, and obviously you can have Facebook that is paid. So this will give you a lot of information about the source and medium. So is it paid? Is it organic? Where is it coming from? How does that paid search break down? How does that referral break down? So, but that's not all. So if you look at the others, you can actually get to the campaign level. And this is where, for most people, if you have a lot of campaigns running, you're going to want to see the information about your campaign. So what actual campaign is running? what is the name of the campaign. And so here you can see they have various campaigns broken down using whatever taxonomy they use to put those campaign information in there. And so this is passed via the UTM code, via the URL. And so you can see this is breaking this down. Now, where you can get some more information is by clicking this plus sign and actually adding some other information to this. So if you go to traffic source, you can also add the campaign ID, the default channel group, the medium, the source, or source medium. And so you can see like, okay, well, this campaign came from, email or something. So let's add those and see what they come up with here. Okay. So you can see like this Evergreen Merch Store US was actually a paid search medium, we're thinking. It could also be a paid social media, I guess. So let's look at source medium just to make sure. Yep. So that was a Google paid search. So it's Google and it's CPC. And let's see if they have any that are email. Yeah. So that it looks like it wasn't set. So the source wasn't set, but there's a medium there. And so you can get into more information where you have like the name of the campaign. This was a newsletter, February 2025, email. So they know exactly what is coming from that. Looks like it only got like 17 clicks, so that's not great. And it didn't generate any dollars. And so that's where you can start to sort through this. You can obviously export this information if you need to, or you can also build a Looker Studio dashboard that will feature all of this campaign information. You can break it out there a little bit more easily by this session source medium and do some sorting and that kind of stuff. You can also build filters here in Google. So if you wanted to, for instance, build a view of these campaigns that was just for email, you can do that. I believe we have another video that talks about doing filters in GA4 and setting up saved reports. Pretty sure. If we do, I'll link to it in the description. If not, we'll be doing a video about that soon. So, but you can do filters on here if you have the correct access. We'll talk about that. But again, you can do this in Explore, or you can do it in Looker Studio to get a more granular look at specific source mediums, like or certain channels that you're looking at. So this information is all in this dashboard if you use the drop downs correctly. And like I said, you can combine these a little bit so that you can start to see some more information there. You can also sort these by name, and you can do a search. So if you just wanted to do a quick search, so anything that included email, we could do that. And then that would automatically kind of filter it a little bit for you. It's not going to be perfect. So that'll give you a lot more insight into those campaigns. Now we know where to get the reporting on this. So we can dive down into this by the traffic acquisition or user acquisition. You can also build custom reports around this in Explore. You can do various comparisons by date and that kind of stuff. And of course, you can use Looker Studio. But how does this information get in here? So if you have an agency, or if you don't have an agency and you want to get to this level of reporting where you have the campaign information, maybe you don't have that right now, that there's no campaign set up, and that you're using primarily the default information from Google. Let's look at this here. I'll get rid of that email sorting. So if this is all you have, because it's the stuff coming from Google and you don't have any of that campaign information, you should still have some of the source medium if it's defined. But what you'll find happening is if you're not defining some of these channels using UTMs and the URLs, you're not going to understand what, like for instance, if it's an email, Google may know it's coming from an email. They're not going to know what campaign it was. They're not going to know what the promotion was or what the sale was. They're just going to bucket it in the email, and that's all the insight you get. So what that means is that you have to add links to those campaigns. And that goes for email, it goes for Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, any of those ads or promotions that you're running in those channels, you're going to have to build a UTM. A UTM is super easy to build. You can use this campaign builder here. That is Google's campaign builder. We'll put a link to this. We also have a spreadsheet that will help you keep track of your campaigns. It'll automatically build this UTM for you. And we'll put a link to that as well. It's just a Google sheet that will help you then keep track of your campaigns, which is important because if you have multiple people building these campaigns and stuff and you don't know what naming convention they're using, you might not know what it's about. And that's a good way for you to keep track of it kind of offline to understand that. But this is the URL builder. It's pretty straightforward. You just put in your main domain that you're pointing to. If you have a campaign ID, you can put it in there. If not, you don't have to. The campaign source is obviously important. So if this is, for instance, a newsletter, you want to put that in there, right? If it is Facebook, you want to put that in there. The campaign medium is also important because this is how Google's going to categorize those. And where we run into a lot of problems is with people putting the incorrect campaign medium in. So you can put whatever you want in here, but Google doesn't necessarily know how to organize it. So for instance, if you're doing a paid Facebook, Instagram, Meta campaign, you're going to want to put some variation probably of CPC or paid. I'm going to show you Google's sheet for that momentarily. That kind of defines some of these variables. So if, for instance, you just put in Facebook and, April campaign or something like that, it will get tracked. You can look up that information in your source medium report that we just went through, but Google's not going to know how to put it into those default groups that we looked at. So it's not going to show up correctly in here. It might come through as unassigned because Google's like, I'm not quite sure where to put that. I'm not recognizing that information. And so you're going to want to try to follow a systematic kind of taxonomy for using the medium. So in this case, it could be Facebook, paid, and then we're going to give it a campaign name. So this is related to your campaign. So it could be, spring sale, right? Campaign term, this is more for like paid search and stuff like that. And the campaign content, this is where you kind of get down. So maybe you have variations of the spring sale Facebook ads. So maybe you have one that's a video, maybe you have a static image, maybe you have a carousel, whatever that is. So and maybe you have various different videos. So maybe you have video 1 or video 2. And that way you can identify those specific creatives in that campaign. And then, so once that's done, it builds the URL for you. So you can copy this and then use that in your marketing. So when you build that Facebook ad, you're just going to want to put this in as the URL that it goes to so that those parameters will get tracked in Google. Now you can also shorten this link if you're doing it in social media or something like that, which is very helpful. So that way you can build that link right in there. It doesn't look like a big, long, convoluted link with all these various variables in here. So you can see what we did here is we filled in these variables in this form, and then it put them in the URL. So you have the UTM source, which is Facebook, the medium, which is CPC, and the campaign, which we said spring sale, and then the content, which in this case we said video 1. And then you can change this and go back. And so say you want to do it for video 2, you can do that there, or do a different, something different altogether. So say, for instance, that you're going to do Bing and CPC and have some sort of campaign here. Maybe it's a specific keyword or something like that. So you can do all of that, and then that will change this source code, this UTM down here for you. You just copy that and paste it. Now, where this isn't necessary, building these UTMs, is if you're doing Google Ads. Because if you've integrated Google Ads with your GA4 account, it automatically builds that tracking for you. So you don't want to add this to Google Ads if you have that connected, which you should. Because Google's going to use that connection to share data with GA4 to understand your sales and that kind of stuff. You're also going to need to add conversion tracking and that kind of thing, probably using Google Tag Manager. That's a whole nother topic, but that Google is passing that information. So you don't want to build this if you don't have to, because it's a big pain in the butt. But it's also possible to do stuff incorrectly. So one of the things that we've seen people do incorrectly is use something like HubSpot, for instance, HubSpot or another automated management thing. And then instead of CPC, maybe they have what was the old version, which is AdWords. So it says, so maybe they have in here Google and then AdWords. And we had a client do this where they turned on the paid search management through HubSpot, and it put in all the campaigns, it put in AdWords. And then when they went back to do the reporting, they were all under, not all of them, but some of them came through as unassigned because Google sometimes assigned them correctly. Sometimes it didn't. It didn't understand what AdWords was anymore, even though back in the day, that was kind of the default for doing that. So that's just where you want to be careful with those campaign mediums. Like I said, if you don't have to do it in Google Ads, don't do it. But for most everything else, you're going to have to do some sort of manual building of these campaign trackers. So whether it's, social media or links on another site, if it's an affiliate program, all of that kind of stuff. So let's take a look at what Google kind of recommends for these. So again, I'll share this page with you. It's a support document from Google. And what it does here is it looks for the manual traffic building down here. So like, for instance, for direct traffic, it's going to look for the source being direct. So somebody entered your URL, they came to your site, and then they're going to look for a medium that is either not set or none. So there's no medium being passed. Same for page shopping, page search. So it looks for instance, in this case, a whole series of sites that it knows are search engines. And then it's also going to look for a medium that is one of these variations. So this is a regex string. So, but basically it's saying something that starts with CP, like CPC, something that is PPC for paid pay-per-click, retargeting, or paid. So it's going to look for some variation or wildcard. In the case of CPC, it's going to look for one of these variations as well as coming from a list of known sites. And that way it'll bucket those paid search programs correctly. Same with paid social. So it's going to look for a source of social sites that it knows, like Facebook, Instagram, that kind of stuff. And then it's also going to look, again, for CPC, PPC, retargeting, or paid. There is some situations where I know people will use like paid social, and sometimes that works and sometimes it seems to not. But if Google's telling you to do it this way, I would recommend doing it this way. And I have seen other agencies do this incorrectly, so that they just throw in a URL or a medium in there that doesn't match what Google's recommending, and so it doesn't show up in the reporting correctly. So just make sure that you are referencing this and building these mediums like Google likes to see. It just keeps the consistent and make sure that they're tracking it correctly. And again, so you can kind of go through here, you can see like it passes stuff automatically. So you don't have to worry, for instance, about organic search and how it's passing it. You don't have to worry about referrals necessarily. One that you do want to be, a couple that you do want to be aware of is email. So it's going to look for the source is coming from email or these variations with a hyphen, underscore, even a space. I would not recommend doing a space. Just stick with email if you can. And the medium is also email or these variations. So you need the source and medium. So I know that some of them show newsletter as the source. So that could potentially cause some issues. So, obviously Google's saying, hey, use email in that newsletter. So I would recommend doing that. Same with affiliates. The medium is going to be affiliate. There's a lot of affiliate sites, which is why I think they're not saying like the source equals a certain site. They're just looking for the medium to be affiliate. And then they're going to know that that's affiliate. And then same as text down here. So they want it to be SMS. So once you've built that out, once you've used these correct medium listings that they or variables that they want, you're using these correctly in here. So for instance, if we do we do email, they want email, right? Then you can get add whatever information you want about the campaign name and the content. So, that it's fine to use other things that you want to use that works for your business. Just try to be consistent. So one of the biggest things in reporting is problematic is that a lot of different teams will go in and use completely different taxonomy to this. So if we look at campaign, this one is actually pretty good, but it's helpful to include as much information as possible in these, right? So like what the date was that it went out, potentially, what the targets were, what the channel was, that kind of stuff. So you can see this campaign name was built out with a lot of information that allows you to see it very quickly to understand what it was without having to, like in some of these, shopping, like the February 2025 Emoji Kitchen V2. I don't know what channel that was from unless I go down here and look at traffic source and then look at source medium. So that doesn't really tell me enough information. Whereas if I, with some of these, if you add that information to it, like this one, where you're seeing a little bit more, this is coming from Performance Max. We know that's Google. This gives you a lot more information. So just as a company, you should make sure that both your vendors and your team is kind of assigning a structure to how they're setting up the campaigns, so you don't have to go guessing and digging and trying to figure out where that campaign came from. So that's the high level for doing campaign reporting and just setting up those UTMs really quickly. Like I said, you can build these tables also in the Looker Studio. It's one of our preferred ways to do this so that you can kind of get more granular and you can build more filters and that kind of stuff, and obviously more visually appealing because you can have charts and trend lines that are a little bit better than Google's very lackluster and minimal kind of data visualization. And you can also do it in Explore. Explore has its own problems though, because it only goes back a certain period of time. And it also has its limitations, and its visual reporting and graphing capabilities is extremely limited. But in a pinch, it allows you to go in and answer really quick questions if you need to. But this is how you do it in GA4. If you have questions about your campaign tracking or managing your campaigns, give us a holler. We'd be happy to help you. I put a link in the description to setting up a free consultation with me. If you do have questions about this or anything else about your marketing and measurement needs, and we'd be happy to talk to you. If you have comments or questions, we always try to answer those. So please feel free to leave comments. If you have further questions about digging into this, just let us know. And let us know what other things you'd like to see. If there's questions you have about GA4, about analytics in general, about your marketing programs, leave those in the comments as well, and we'll try to get back to you as soon as possible. Have a great day, guys. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.